Hello and welcome back to my channel. I am Mercedes and this is the Frugal Life with Mercedes. What is compromise? So we are told, especially in romantic relationships, that in order to make it work, you have to compromise. Okay, I can get behind that. You're always going to have to compromise. You're going to have to compromise in romantic relationships, in interpersonal relationships of any kind, at work, with just people out and about. You will have to compromise. But a lot of people's idea of what compromise is very skewed, and it's skewed towards them and their wants. So what do I mean by that? If you are constantly in a situation, whether, as I said, whether it's a romantic partner or your children or your mother-in-law or whoever, but you are never getting anything that you want, that is not a compromise. That is controlling. That is a dictatorship. That is not compromise. Compromise means sometimes I get what I want, sometimes you get what you want. Sometimes we get a little bit of what I want, sometimes we get a little bit of what you want. I think I heard it explained like from a business standpoint is neither one of us are really getting what we want, but we're getting enough of what we want to appease both parties. So if one person is always picking what you eat, when you eat, where you eat, how long you eat, the portions that you eat, that's not compromise. One person is always picking the activities. One person is always picking what you watch on TV. One person is always picking when you go on vacation, where you go on vacation, how long you're on vacation. That's not compromise. That is controlling. So, how do you fix that? Put down boundaries. Say no. If they refuse, then go do your own thing. I have been in situations before, in romantic situations, where they wanted to pick everything. And if I was like, hey, you know what? You're always picking where we're going on dates. You're always choosing whether we see each other or we don't see each other. You're always choosing the TV shows, and if I say like, hey, I don't want to watch that, I'm the problem. And I just didn't put up with it. And granted, I was not married to these people, so I was able to leave the relationship. So if you are married to somebody, it's a little bit more complicated. But I've also been in a situation when I was married the first time where they did want to pick a lot of things. And I didn't really get like they were trying to make it so I didn't get a say, like how we're going to spend our Saturday. So guess what? I got up and spent my Saturday the way that I wanted to. But then people will say that's passive aggressive. But if you go to a therapist, they will actually encourage that. Because one person should not be making all the decisions and then calling it compromise. Another super common thing is one person is making all the decisions, but expecting the other person to plan and coordinate it. So you're being asked to plan and coordinate what you're not even interested in. And this can also lead to learned helplessness. If your spouse sends flowers to their mother every Mother's Day, but really they cannot be bothered to remember when Mother's Day is, or that you have to order those well in advance, and then it's put on you, but that's a compromise, right? Like they'll try to skew it like, you know, well, you're better at those things. And you're like, well, no, this is yours. Well, this is a compromise. Like you handle those certain things that I don't want to handle, you know, and I'll handle these things that you don't want to handle. And you're like, I don't mind handling those things that you're handling. That's not a compromise. That's you choosing, it's you cherry picking household chores and responsibilities. And so there has to be a point where you're like, yeah, this is not compromise. So if somebody's trying to convince you that they are compromising, but it feels like you're never getting what you want, and I'm not saying you're going to get 100% of what you want at all times, but if you literally are never getting to choose the things, or the person throws a fit or is mean, abusive, whether it be verbally or acting out in some way, That's not compromise. That's you living in fear of the other person's reaction to you asserting yourself. And that's not a situation that anybody should be in. So again, it doesn't matter if it's your children, your significant other, your in-laws, your own personal parents, whoever. True compromise is sometimes I get what I want, sometimes you get what you want. Sometimes we both get a little bit of what we want. But if you are literally never getting anything, even a fraction of what you want, and if you assert yourself, it's a big problem, that's not compromise. No matter what anybody says, that's not compromise. So I hope that somebody learned something, and it will encourage you to stand up for yourself and try to get somebody to understand what actual compromise is. And it's really hard to try to convince somebody that they aren't really compromising, because they might really think that they are. And you just got to keep working at it with them. And as always, I would suggest you talk to a mental health professional about certain situations that I mentioned, because they are not good and they are not worth putting up with. Okay guys, so I hope that you got something out of this video. Please consider subscribing to my channel, and until next time, bye.